2 weeks to go until Joe Biden's national nightmare of a presidency is over. And the big guy isn't hiding the fact that he's bitter and angry at the world that shunned him. But it's really no wonder why he's upset. His legacy's in tatters. Hunter's foreign cash pipeline's about to dry up. His entire party blames him for Democrats' November thumping, with Kamala certifying those results in Congress today. And the Trump train's about to undo every one of his policies. So now Biden's throwing temper tantrums, lashing out at his successor as a threat to democracy and snapping at reporters, lecturing them about his 50-year resume in global affairs. Watch.
Do you still believe he's a threat to democracy?
I think what he did was a genuine threat to democracy. I'm hopeful that we're beyond that. My being the oldest president, I know more world leaders than any one of you ever met in your whole life. And I know them, and I know how they think. Not a joke.
Meanwhile, Democrats and their media cheerleaders are swearing up and down that they never misled anybody about Joe Biden's obvious decline.
What do you say to Americans who feel as though you and other top Democrats misled them about President Biden's mental acuity?
No. Look, we didn't. And he's a patriot. He's a great guy. And when he stepped down, he did it on his own because he thought it was better not only for the Democratic Party, for America. We should all salute him. We should all salute him.
I was very surprised that when you asked the question about mental acuity, he didn't more forcefully push back. The question on the table is the president all the way there? And the answer is unequivocally yes.
But every day is a new reminder of how unfit Joe Biden was for the presidency. He can't even get happy birthday right.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
All right, Greg, welcome back.
Thank you. And I would like to say happy January 6th to everyone, or Harold, as I like to call it, Jan-teenth.
We missed you. Your facelift looks great.
Thank you. I know. Everybody bought the story that I had a kid, right? But I look 10 years younger. It's amazing.
How do you see things now? January 6th, new year, new Greg. What's up?
Well, first of all, watching Schumer defend himself is hilarious. But remember, those people that are questioning him were in on the hoax. The media was complicit. So in a way, it's like watching one Menendez brother pointing his finger at the other. The media didn't ask these questions until it no longer mattered, when the election was over. They waited until their side lost, and now they're doing their job. It's like, it's kind of frustrating watching comedians now, whether it's the Golden Globes or CNN's New Year's Eve, doing Biden jokes. Now that there's nothing edgy about it. My guys were doing jokes about the administration and about Joe Biden when it mattered. They lost friends, they lost jobs, but they still took the risk because they wanted to be true to their audience. They didn't lie to their audience. And meanwhile, you see what's happening around the world, which is amazing. So Canada is tossing out Trudeau. Mexico is happily prepping for deportations. Zelensky is embracing MAGA in that latest interview. England is finally facing their reckoning over the mass rapes. This Trump effect is real. And and going back to the hoax thing, the Trump effect is defined by citizens embracing what they see versus what they're told. Mm-hmm. Everything that the government told us went counter to what we saw, our lived experience. We knew Biden was not well. We knew the border was worse. We knew crime was beyond control. But the government said, no, believe us. No, we figured it out. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that the right had experienced debunking the hoaxes. Democrats weren't doing that. They weren't debunking any hoaxes because they were behind them. But not only did the right debunk these hoaxes, they taught others how to do it. That's why none of this stuff could fly anymore.
Welcome back, Greg. You haven't missed a beat.
Oh, thank you.
Just as surly as he always was. Mm-hmm. Dana,
yes.
Biden not
How's
really...
my facelift look?
You look great. You look great.
I was thinking about it. Next year.
There's always next year.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. It takes a long time to recover.
Yes.
That's why you needed all those days.
Yes. All right.
I counted them. There was 46 days.
I'm the new Mayor Pete.
Dana, not a graceful exit by Joe Biden, lashing out at reporters.
Yeah, and a couple of things. what did all of those friendships get us? Where did all of these great relationships with the world leaders lead? We have more problems in the world that Trump will inherit and is going to have to fix. We have more problems in North Korea. Of course, this is not just a Biden thing. Anytime Kim Jong-un wants attention, he'll send a missile across the sea, and then the South Koreans are going to have to try to get us involved. But really, I wonder, like, if it was just knowing world leaders and having friends all over the world that was like the measure of your success, then okay, maybe, but that's actually not what we're talking about here. The other thing is listening to people defend themselves about Biden's condition makes Baghdad Bob look like a realistic character. And if you don't remember him, kids, look it up. Baghdad Bob is really hilarious kind of guy. But when Schumer says Biden himself realized that the better thing to do for the party was for him to drop out, that was disproven last week by who? By Biden himself, because he did interviews in which he said, I never should have dropped out. I'm the only one who could have beat him. And he's going to go out of the presidency believing that he could have beat Biden again. So none of that is believable.
Happy, what is it, Greg? Janteenth, Harold.
Happy New Year.
Happy, it's good to
That's
have
when
you
we
back.
free the Sixers.
Good to be back. And congratulations again.
Thank
you. You're starting to look more and more like a great dad, and let's see if you begin to sound like one as we
Probably
get. I think today President Trump has every reason to celebrate. You think about 4 years ago where we were. You have two things. You have President Trump elected again, and you have an acceptance of the results, and a Congress with Vice President Harris, who lost the race, overseeing the proceedings. I'm happy with that. I'm not happy with the outcome, but I'm happy that this is a continuation of the peaceful transfer of power, and she's a part of it. Two, I'm done with Joe Biden in this regard. I think the race is over. So talking about him in many ways for Democrats, I hope he doesn't mistake what I'm saying. I think he is more accomplished, and he will be thought of differently in 4 to 8 years. And if he has any doubt about it, I'd say to the president, who's still the president, think about what people were saying on this day 4 years ago about Donald Trump. You're unlikely to be elected president again, but you certainly have an opportunity for that legacy to be thought of in a very different way. But he should not mistake himself either. People thought he was going to be a transitional president. People thought he would probably stay 4 years and move on. And then when he couldn't come up with a great set of ideas and a great vision for what the country could look forward to for the next 4 years, even when he passed it on to Vice President Harris, Democrats didn't fare well. I look at it as the PBC election: prices, border, and culture. We lost on all three of those. And I think it's inherent and incumbent upon Democrats now to root for this president, to work with him where you can. I thought there was a great interview with Susie Wiles, I think in Axios today. I would urge everyone to read it, particularly Democrats who have to work with her and work with the president, and understand where there's room for disagreement. Let that disagreement be principled, let it be constructive, and where it has to be loud, let it be loud. But 4 years ago today, I did not think this is the day we'd be saying. And the great thing about politics is all of us know, and Dana and Kayleigh in particular, having worked in the White House, is that everything is possible. Which is why it warms my heart to say I didn't think I'd be saying to Greg Gutfeld, a father, for the first time on January 6th,
You know what you said, which
2025.
was very interesting? Oh, there's something in there,
Okay.
trust me. He said, I don't care about Joe Biden anymore. That's the truth. It's like if you watch the movie, I watched a lot of movies when I was away. If you watch the movie Die Hard, you see John McClane beat Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber is dead. Imagine after the credits, you have a scene, a sobering look at how Gruber's family is dealing with the loss. That's Joe Biden. Nobody needs that scene. It was a big win. No one cares. No one wants to be in the loser's locker room. So go away.
I watched Top Gun, the original, for the very first time.
You had never seen Top Gun?
I'd never seen it, and I cried.
During the volleyball scene, didn't you?
Highway to...
It was, now, can you cry as a man at Top Gun? Well, I'm only asking the men. Kayleigh and Dana, stay out of this.
Did you use a straw?
All right, let's get to Kaylee here.
Coca-Cola.
This is getting too interesting.
It is getting very interesting. Kaylee's been so patient. I just want to listen.
Go ahead. Tell us what you think about this very special day.
I think delusion is setting in the Biden White House. And I think you see that when his aides are telling people history will view him kindly. I actually believe in the rearview mirror. The Biden presidency is going to look very poor. And I believe that because the Wall Street Journal came out with this report, 50 sources. I mean, think about that, gathering 50 sources. That is an enormous number of sources they gathered. And what they find, the advanced aging was advanced early on, says that in the piece, early on. When you look at this, Chuck Schumer wants us to salute the president. Really? They said they were limiting the information that got to him, the people that got to him, canceling meetings early on. Adam Smith, who is the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, said, hey, I couldn't even get a hold of him with Afghanistan. I tried to call. I got an angry call from Tony Blinken and then an apologetic call from Biden. He said it was the only time he heard from him during the entire presidency. What was the nexus between national security failures and the mental acuity? I don't know that we'll ever know the answer, but I asked Tom Cotton, should they be preserving documents in the White House? And he said, it wouldn't be a bad idea to preserve documents on mental acuity because there's a lot we don't know, and I hope we get to the bottom of it. I think it's a massive scandal.
I can't wait to feast my eyes on those documents or have my staff do it for me. It's going to be great. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.